Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I hope everyone settles down soon. We will begin shortly once we get everyone into the room. Yeah, we'll begin shortly. Okay, I think we can start now. So once again, hello everyone. A very good morning to all of you. I'm Audrey, the Associate Director with Global Migration Solutions. Welcome to our first webinar for 2022. I hope it's not too late to wish all of you a very happy new year and sincerely wishing for this year to be a vibrant one for all of us. So the beginning of the year is always a popular period where many decide to embark on new plans for their future, and migration is often one of it. We are in fact seeing a sharp increase in inquiries. So the webinar today has been designed in the best way possible to provide the most comprehensive information on the popular migration routes to Australia. Migrants are an integral part of Australia. In fact, even during the pandemic last year, the migration program remained ongoing, of course, with revised priorities to cater for the economic growth. So what happened is the quotas for business investment pathways doubled and the global talent visa tripled. This is what we were seeing. General skill migrations for offshore applicants was not made priority last year, and students were also not able to get to Australia yet. However, we are already seeing a positive shift in this for 2022, especially since the borders reopened to practically most of the temporary visas since 15 December, just last month. Okay, so especially on the skill migration front, most states have at least started to reopen nominations for general skill migration for offshore applicants, and students are also making their way to Australia already. So industry analysts, in fact, expect that Australia will require a significant number of skilled migrants, and both the government and the opposition generally are on the same page in encouraging more business and skill migration for the future of Australia. So we believe this will be a good year to see the migration program picking up, as globally everyone and everything is returning back to business as usual. So there would be more concrete information in May following the national budget. So for today's key topic, we will cover the global talent visa, general skill migration, the various pathways for business and investment visas, and we will also touch on the study visa as an alternative program to gain residency in Australia. So we hope that by sharing the overview of these programs, you would be able to know better and decide which is of better interest and suitability to you. But at the same time, speak to us and we will help you also determine the best route suitable for you. Right? So before I pass you on to the speakers for today, just allow me to introduce you on the company. Okay, so Global Migration Solutions, we are based in Kuala Lumpur, and ANZ Migrate, our sister company, is based in Singapore. So we are an award-winning migration agency that advocates the right migration practices with trust, service, and commitment for our clients, our partners, ourselves, and our brand. Okay, next. We have been in operation for 17 years now and maintain a 99% success rate. And we are happy to share that we have helped more than 12,000 families successfully with their migration plans. We are also the only migration agency in Malaysia that has won the Global Migration Agency CEO Award by U Global Magazine, an international magazine based in US. We are honored to have won this consecutively and progressed from top 100 to top 25 for 2021. So these are the programs that we carry. So we are the pioneers for Australia and New Zealand, and we also do Portugal and US, which are investment programs. Next. We are located in we have 5 locations. We have a service office in Australia, and we have office in Singapore, of course. Malaysia, we are based in Tun Razak, Vietnam, and Hong Kong as well. So these are the key people behind the company. So Desmond Ang, and they're also the speakers for today. So Desmond Ang is the founder and managing director of Global Migration Solutions. Most importantly, he is licensed migration agent for Australia and New Zealand. Desmond is a chartered accountant by profession and now has over 17 years of experience offering effective immigration advice for both clients of global migration and also a popular speaker in migration events. Desmond, would you just say hi?
Thank you, Audrey. Hi, everyone, and welcome to join us. I'm very excited, with this very first webinar of the year, and I would like to take this opportunity to wish every one of you Happy New Year, and may you be blessed with health and happiness. Thank you.
All right. Next speaker is James. James, can you just say hi?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome today. And I look forward to starting a new year of migration. And I'm really, really hopeful that the program is going to be quite significant this year and have a lot of opportunities for people to migrate.
Thank you, James. So James is the founder and managing director of ANZ Migrate in Singapore. James's background is in IT, and he was a project manager at IBM Singapore in his early days, and now a senior migration agent and also a professional development trainer, conducting CPD classes for other registered migration agents. So today you'll be hearing from 2 experts. Next. These are their licenses. You'll be able to verify how current their license is through the immigration website as well. Okay, so I'm done with my introduction and I'm going to pass it to James for him to take over. So enjoy the session. Just to let you know, we welcome questions, any questions at all. Feel free to put in your question into the Q&A column at the bottom of your screen, and we will attend to it. All right, enjoy, everyone. James, over to you.
Thank you, Audrey. So I want to start out with a brief overview of what's been happening with the migration program for Australia, and talk about what's coming up before we talk about the various pathways. So one very positive thing is Australia has still been supportive of migration, even during the challenges of this pandemic period. And they continued the processing and allowed applications during the pandemic period. They were forced to do some reductions. So we saw a reduction in processing of skilled migration in particular, and there were some border restrictions as a result of the COVID risk factors being considered. And that's obviously applicable to all countries. Great thing is we're starting to see these restrictions being removed and the program starting to open up and more opportunities start to appear. The biggest impact during this pandemic period has probably been on the general skilled migration and the education side. The general skilled migration program became very focused on applicants that were already in Australia. So the government's view was people that had been in Australia studying or working in Australia, it would give them priority to actually go through to residence pathways under general skilled migration. But the other interesting thing was during the pandemic period, the government also saw a huge opportunity for business and investment migrants. And the number of places available for this program was actually doubled during the pandemic period. So rather than actually slowing that down, they actually increased that program significantly over the last 2 years. And even in the current program year, this has continued, and we're hopeful that it will continue to maintain at this high level in the next few years. And the reason for that, the key reason for that, is the government sees business and investment migration as one of the key contributors to economic growth in Australia. So they see this as bringing in jobs, creating jobs, new business opportunities in Australia, and the government is very focused on bringing business and investment people to Australia. The other program that was also given a high focus during the pandemic period was the Global Talent Independent, which is a skilled program designed to bring highly talented individuals to Australia. And that had its planning levels tripled. So it was previously 5,000 places. It was actually increased to 15,000 places in each year during the pandemic period. So also a high focus area for the government. What the government's done now is they have started lifting the border restrictions, and currently pretty much anyone with any visa except for a visitor visa can now enter Australia, and we're expecting other restrictions to be lifted over the coming months in phases. Okay. Now, in 2022, we are expecting some changes, of course, as we go back to normality, as much as things are going to be normal post-pandemic. International study is now open, so students can now go to Australia, both previous students and new students. So if you were looking at studying in Australia, the doors are now open for that. And there are study opportunities that commence every month, as well as the prime times of July and January as prime times to start courses as well. As Audrey mentioned, there are industry analysts that have set an expectation that Australia will need a significantly higher number of skilled migrants than previous. And both political parties, the government that's in power and the opposition, both support this position. Now that's important because we do have a national election coming up by May at the latest, which may see a change of government. So irrespective of whether the current government stays in power or the opposition get in power, we do expect to see high levels of immigration ongoing. So I'll talk about the main pathways to Australia, particularly on the skilled side, and Desmond will continue talking about the business and investment pathways. So the first program I'll talk about is the Global Talent Independent. This is a relatively new program. It started, the current version started in 2019, and it's designed to bring highly talented individuals to Australia. Now, this is part of the government's response to things like technology and growing technology and a need for really high-level skills coming to Australia. One of the problems with general skilled migration, it really doesn't have any way to factor in people's exceptional high-level skills. So you could be very high-level in an occupation versus someone who is low-level in an occupation. And under general skilled migration, you're treated the same. There's not any consideration given to you having high level of achievements or recognition or reputation in the industry. So the Global Talent Independent, as an alternative program, does consider those factors. And the requirements here are the applicants for this must have a record of achievements in a sorry, I'm not sure what's happening with this presentation here. It just moved. Just bear with me. Okay, must have a record of achievements in one of the 10 future focus sectors. So the government has identified 10 sectors, 10 priority sectors, and they are looking for people that have achievements and a record of prominence and awareness in one of these 10 priority sectors. Now, there are some very good features of this program. And okay. Some of these features are, there is no age limit for this program. There are some differing requirements if the person is under 18 or 55 years and older, and they relate to demonstrating exceptional benefit to Australia, Under the government's policy, exceptional benefit really means bringing skills that are going to assist Australia in its international standing in that particular area, and would be able to be used relatively soon after arriving in Australia. So nothing significant in terms of additional requirements there. So quite open in terms of age. There is no hard English requirement for this pathway, meaning that there is a requirement relating to the fees, and the government will charge a higher fee if someone doesn't have English. But aside from that, there is no English requirement for this pathway, which means if you don't want to do any English language test, you don't have to do that. And to avoid the fee, you can just simply show that you've got some education that was done in English. No mandatory qualifications for this. There is no points test. So a lot of the requirements for general skills migration are not there. And it is a direct priority process permanent residence visa. Now, there are a few stages involved with this process, but the actual visa processing itself typically takes around 2 to 3 months to process and results in a permanent residence visa. It does not require a job offer in Australia, and it allows the person to then go to Australia as a permanent resident. If they want to work, they can, but they don't have to. There's no conditions that require them to use their skills in Australia. There's no conditions that require them to have a job in Australia, and they have full permanent residence when they arrive in Australia. Now, the 10 priority sectors are listed here. Most of these are straightforward. There have been some changes in these over the last year or so, and the government will continue to look at these and revise them as necessary based upon industry needs. Most of these are fairly straightforward. Circular economy at number 4 looks at things like recycling and renewing, reducing waste. Digitech at number 6 is an amalgamation of various areas of electronics and IT and ICT. So this will cover things like robotics, software, IT security, automation, anything related to electronics, digital, IT, ICT, software, computing is all within Digitech. So the government is trying to have very broad categories here. They're trying not to exclude people as long as there's some connection to one of these 10 future-focused target sectors. Now, the key requirements for this pathway are the person needs to have a record of outstanding and exceptional achievements in one of these 10 priority sectors. Now, that might sound quite extreme. We're not looking for people that have got a Nobel Prize. We're not looking for people that are necessarily famous in these particular fields. We have, for example, put people through this program that are in senior roles in their company and have had success with successful projects, with delivery of solutions or promoting particular products or services that can be beneficial to other companies. So there's a wide range of factors we can consider here in terms of that recognition and what kinds of achievements the person has had. We do want them to have some prominence in the sector, and that could be through speaking at events, it could be through getting awards, it could be through networking with other companies. So there's a lot of factors we can consider there for that prominence. We do have to show the person has a capability of being a potential asset to the Australian community. So what we want to show here is the person is able to show benefits they could bring to Australia by using their skills in Australia. Now, as I mentioned before, there is no requirement that they must do this when they get to Australia, but we do have to show for the application that they're able and capable of using their skills to provide a benefit to Australia. Now, that can be companies in Australia, it could be industry in Australia, it could be individuals in Australia. So some form of benefit to some part of Australia. There is a requirement for earning potential, and this is also one of the factors that's considered to make sure they bring in the right level of people. And the income level they look at is $158,500 Australian per year. Now, that doesn't require the person to be currently earning that income. What we want to show is that person has the capability of earning that income in Australia now or in the near future in Australia. So I want to show that capability. The government understands that salary levels do vary and do vary across countries. and particularly with different currencies as well. So we're not expecting someone in Malaysia, for example, to necessarily be earning this income, but we would show that they've got the capability to go into a role in Australia that would be capable of earning that income. And the person applying for this must be nominated by an Australian individual or company that has a national reputation in Australia in that particular field. Now, what we look at for that is typically people that are in a senior role or a senior management role within the industry in that particular sector, or we could look at people that are doing academic research in a major university in Australia in that particular area. There are several options we can look at for this. Often our clients will have a network where they will know people in Australia, or they will know people who know someone else that is in Australia and capable of being a nominator. For those who don't, we do have pathways and partners in Australia that can assist us in finding nominators for various fields. So if you're unable to do that, that's something we can certainly assist you with in terms of identifying a suitable nominator. So let's talk about general skilled migration, which has been one of the backbones of the migration program to Australia. And certainly for people applying from overseas, this has always been a favourite pathway because unlike many countries, you don't require a job with this pathway and you're able to get permanent residency in Australia through this pathway without requiring a job in Australia. So it is based upon someone's suitability, their education, their English language ability, their age, their amount of work experience. These kinds of factors are looked at. There is a point system associated with this where points are given for different factors, and these are weighed up, and certain groups of people are selected and invited to apply for this visa in Australia. It's been a very successful program. There are a lot of challenges with it. As I mentioned before, it doesn't differentiate for very highly skilled people that may have significant reputation in their industry, and that's where the Global Talent Program comes into play. So this program has been a main backbone of the program to Australia, the migration program to Australia. It will continue, but it is something that does change a lot depending upon the economic climate in Australia, the needs in Australia, and it's also a very heavily subscribed program. There are a lot of people applying for a limited number of places under this program, and it is becoming a more and more competitive program. But it's also designed to actually be a competitive program to allow the higher skilled, better scoring, particularly in the points test, people to actually get through. That said, there can still be opportunities for people who have lower points, and that's something we'd be able to discuss with you and assess as part of the consideration for the eligibility for this pathway. So some of the key requirements for this pathway, the applicants must be under 45 years of age. That's a hard cutoff. And generally speaking, the older you are, the closer you are to 45, the harder it is to get through the program because there are decreasing points awarded for age. The prime group for age is 24 to 32. So in that age group, they will get the highest points for age. There is an expression of interest system called an EOI, which is where the government has the opportunity to identify suitable candidates from the pool of people wanting to be considered under this program. And that's the main system that's used to identify the preferred candidates for this program. There is a point system, which has a threshold of 65 points. For many of the options under this program, points are a very important consideration, and higher points may be necessary to secure a chance under this program. So this is part of the assessment we'll do to determine whether or not there's a realistic chance of success under this program. And as a skilled program, the occupation the person has relevant experience or skills in is very, very important. And there are certain occupations that are accepted under this program. There's also certain occupations that are not accepted under this program. And there's also certain priorities for occupations. So some occupations are considered high priority, some occupations are considered lower priority. And for lower priority occupations, there may be restricted options. For example, a low priority occupation may only be available if the person is willing to live and work, at least initially, in regional or lower population areas of Australia. So the three options under this program, or the three main options under this program, are listed here, and we refer to these as subclasses. So just as a general introduction, whenever we talk about visas for Australia, we will talk about a 3-digit number, which identifies a particular visa subclass that we're talking about. So you can think of this as a visa for Australia. So the first one is a 189, also known as a skilled independent, and that is a direct permanent residence visa under general skilled migration. It's only for high priority occupations, and these are occupations identified on an occupation list called the medium to long skill shortage list. So people on this list, with occupations on this list, can consider this pathway. It is very, very competitive, and the main selection factor is a ranking by points. So people with the highest points are given priority. People with lower points may not have an opportunity to be successful under this program, based upon the number of competing people for that occupation and their particular points. We then have the subclass 190 visa, which is a skilled nominated visa. So this requires nomination by a state or territory government in Australia. So Australia is divided up into various states and territories, and this gives the opportunity for these states and territories to identify skills that are needed in their particular region and select people through this program that have the skills that the government is looking for. And just bear with me, my presentation has disappeared. Just give me a moment, please.
I think Desmond is accidentally kicked out.
Look, no problem. I can keep talking about this. I could talk about migration all days.
Yes.
I actually
just do it without the slides, James.
Yeah, I teach migration to other agents, so so I no problem talking about it. So talking about the 190, it is a pathway that allows the states to identify the skills they need, and based upon that, they can select candidates. So what happens with the 190 program is we put forward people's interest in particular states and territories. We let them know about the skills and the background of the person, and they can decide who they want to invite to that. Now, it does include not only the high priority occupations I talked about for the 189, but also it's open to even more occupations that wouldn't normally be available because the states have that flexibility to have a wider range of occupations to choose from. So the points ranking is less important, but still an important factor. Certainly less so than the 189, but still an important consideration for this. Now, the states and territories do generally prefer people that are already in Australia, onshore in Australia. There is a different preference towards that. So this would be people that, for example, have recently graduated from study in that particular state or territory, or people that have been working in Australia, maybe on a temporary work visa. There is a preference given to these people. And there are cohorts of people that go to Australia to study specifically with this visa in mind as a pathway to get their residency after they're finished studying in Australia. I do need to point out nothing is guaranteed. And if you do study in Australia, there's no guarantee that you will have a pathway to residency after you study. It will be subject to meeting future requirements. But the states and territories do generally have specific pathways available to students that they can tap into, provided they meet those requirements. The last pathway is the 491. Now this differs because the first two I talked about are direct permanent residence pathways. This third pathway is a two-stage pathway to permanent residence, not directly to permanent residence. So the way it works is the first stage is a temporary visa that allows the person to live and work in Australia, subject to conditions and on a temporary visa. And the main condition with this is they are limited to living and working in regional areas of Australia, and these are lower population areas. Typically, these are excluding the capital cities of Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, but the rest of Australia is generally open for this. A wider range of occupations are available, and it is going to have more options for offshore applicants than the other pathways, as a general comment. So this is something that's becoming more and more of interest, and a lot of the program is shifting towards this program because the government really wants to encourage people to go to some of the smaller cities in Australia, and it allows the states to have access to a wider range of occupations to meet their skill needs in Australia. Presentation moving. Okay. Oh. Okay. So we're expecting the General Skilled Migration Program to become more popular this year. What I mean by that is, over the pandemic period, we did see the government reducing the number of places available under this program, and we are expecting the government to make more places available, because this is a backbone of migration to Australia and bringing skills to Australia. I mean, one of the main reasons for having migration to Australia is to bring skills into Australia. Australia has a relatively small population for its land size. We've got a lot of growing industry, and there's a lot of need for skills, and this program is key to that. Now, I also want to mention study as a pathway. I talked before about the states having pathways for people that have been studying in Australia, and there are pathways to residency under General Skilled Migration from that. So this is worth mentioning, in particular, because the General Skilled Program has become very, very competitive. We have also seen some people actually look at study as an alternative pathway to get residency in Australia, because a general principle under General Skilled Migration is, if you are in Australia already, whether you're studying or working there, your chances of getting through General Skilled Migration are significantly improved. There is a definite bias towards people that are already in Australia. So we are seeing some people, particularly couples and families, where with a husband and wife, one of them may elect to study in Australia. They might go on to do further studies, such as a master's degree. And then we will, and then their spouse can actually work. And if the spouse is studying, if one of them is studying a master's degree, the spouse can actually undertake full-time open work rights in Australia, allowing them to work in any occupation without requiring the employer to sponsor them. So they're able to work as a local, effectively, in Australia without any work restrictions. And that can lead through to residency pathways under state nomination or even potentially employer sponsorship. So this is worth considering. There are pathways there, and that can be considered as an alternative strategy. Even if you've got experience and you are older, it could be considered as a pathway. So it's worth keeping that open as an option as well. I do apologise, there might be some noise, unfortunately. One of the drawbacks of our pandemic situation and working from home is we are potentially subject to renovation noises. So I do apologise for that. The building management did assure me there'd be no renovation noises today. So I'm very sorry about this. I'll quickly get through in fact, I've actually finished my section now, so I'll actually hand over to Desmond, who will talk about the business and investment migration. So thank you for listening to me, and handing over to you, Desmond.